Before you listen, if you enjoy the stories and want to hear more, then please consider subscribing. Most of you listening aren't subscribed, so please take this time to subscribe. Turn on notifications so you'll never miss a story and be the first to hear. You'll also be supporting me. Thank you. When my wife and I decided to move out to the countryside, we were thrilled to find our dream home. It was a beautiful old farmhouse built in the 1890s on 5 acres of rolling land with a big wraparound porch and a huge maple tree out front that must have been around since the house was built. The inside had been lovingly updated over the years, but still had the original hardwood floors, built-in cabinets, and farmhouse sink. It felt homey yet spacious, with high ceilings and big south-facing windows that let in tons of sunlight. A large barn stood a little ways from the house, looking stately against the backdrop of grassy fields. This place had everything we were looking for to start our new life together. The day we moved in was one of the happiest and most tiring of my life. We rented a big truck and spent hours hauling all of our boxes and furniture onto the property. My arms ached from carrying heavy loads up and down the porch steps, but I didn't mind since it meant we were officially moving into our dream home. We started unpacking in the kitchen, carefully putting away our dishes and pots and pans. I could already imagine the amazing meals I would cook in this beautiful farmhouse kitchen. After stocking the fridge and making the beds with our fresh new sheets, we continued unpacking room by room. As we worked, we talked excitedly about ideas for decorating each space and making the house our own. In the living room, I propped up the framed photos of our families while my wife neatly lined our books up on the built-in shelves. Upstairs in our bedroom, we pushed the antique oak bed frame into place and set our nightstands on either side. I smiled thinking about waking up to the sunrise filtering through the gauzy curtains. By late afternoon, when we finally finished unloading the truck, we were both totally exhausted. While my wife started preparing a simple dinner, I decided to head down to the basement to check out the storage space. I grabbed a flashlight and carefully walked down the creaky wooden stairs. The basement was dim but very tidy and dry. The previous owners had installed new humidifiers and left behind some old metal shelves along one wall, likely used for canning when the house was a working farm. As I panned my flashlight around the large, unfinished space, I noticed a musty odor in the air. I walked over to the shelves, examining the dozen or so mason jars lined up neatly with faded, peeling labels. As I leaned closer, I suddenly noticed a gap in the metal shelving unit, almost like there was some hidden space behind it. Gripped by curiosity about the old house and its secrets, I wedged myself into the narrow gap and pushed hard against the heavy shelf. With a scrape along the concrete floor, it surprisingly budged just enough for me to peer behind it. In the shadowy space revealed behind the shelf, I could barely make out a long, dark bundle lying on the dirt floor. My heartbeat quickened as I fumbled to illuminate the object with my phone's flashlight. At first it looked like a pile of rags, but as the light swept over it, I realized with horror that it was unmistakably human remains. A skeletal body was wrapped in aged cloth, partially obscured by dirt and thick cobwebs. I cried out in alarm and stumbled back from the grisly discovery. My hands shook as I tried to process what I was seeing. How could a dead body be hidden down here? Why hadn't the previous owner said anything? I knew I had to call the police immediately. I rushed back upstairs on trembling legs, shouting to my wife that she needed to come down to the basement right away. She was startled to see me in such a panicked state. I quickly described the bones wrapped in tattered fabric that I had found behind the shelves. She gasped and covered her mouth in disbelief. With a deep breath, I dialed the cops and did my best to calmly explain the situation to the operator. Within 15 minutes, police vehicles were pulling up the long gravel driveway. 2 officers came to the door to interview us while forensic teams entered the house. We brought the police down to the basement and showed them the human remains concealed behind the shelf. I explained we had just moved all our belongings in that morning and had no idea a body was down there. The officers eyed us with suspicion but had no reason yet to doubt our story. Over the next few hours, our picturesque new home became a crime scene swarming with police officers and detectives. The forensic team swept the house thoroughly for any other evidence while a detective questioned my wife and I in depth about the sequence of events. We repeated again and again that we had just moved in and knew nothing else about the remains stashed in the basement. As the investigation unfolded over the following days, we learned more about the grisly find at our property. The bones were identified as a female in her late 20s who went missing back in 1978 when the home had different owners. After examining old missing persons reports, they confirmed the remains were those of Heather Miles, a young woman who disappeared after a party at the farmhouse 45 years ago. Her worried family had searched desperately for her at the time, but no trace was ever found, until now. My wife and I were devastated to learn our charming farmhouse had such a dark history. We dreaded going down to the basement or even looking out at the yard, haunted by the knowledge of what had happened here. At night, I lay awake replaying the moment of discovery, imagining poor Heather's final frightened moments in this very house before her life was cut brutally short. What kind of evil, violent act could have been committed here all those years ago? In the end, the weight of it all was too much to bear. My wife was plagued by nightmares of being watched and stalked in the creaky old house. I jumped at every unfamiliar noise, feeling a sense of ominous dread. Heather's murder going unsolved and her body hidden for decades were mysteries we simply couldn't live with. We decided to sell the house. No matter how pretty and charming it seemed on the surface, something ugly and tragic lay buried far too close. I wondered if Heather's spirit would cling to this place, the only home she'd known in death. Ultimately, we realized our fresh start and happy memories could never flourish in the shadow of someone else's cold end. A month later, we were handing the keys over to new owners and driving away, leaving the farmhouse and its secrets behind for good. Picture this. I've just moved into my new house, brimming with excitement and dreams of domestic bliss. The sun's doing that golden hour thing, casting long shadows that dance across the floors, making even the half-put-together furniture look kinda artsy. First day in the new place, and it's the standard unpacking chaos. Boxes are scattered like a trail of breadcrumbs, furniture stands half-assembled, and the eternal dilemma of whether to tackle the kitchen mess or opt for a cozy pizza night hangs in the air. In the spirit of embracing the chaos, I decide on a ladder because, let's be honest, who doesn't love a good pizza night in a new and unfamiliar space? As the sun dips below the horizon, ushering in the quiet of the night, that's when things take an unexpected turn. Lounging on the couch, engrossed in a questionable choice of TV shows, I hear it, a muffled sound akin to a creak or a thud. The kind of noises that set the stage for classic horror movies. Initially, I try to dismiss it as a house settling, the ordinary settling sounds one might expect in a new environment. Yet, that unsettling feeling, that inexplicable prickling at the back of my neck, begins to worm its way into my consciousness. The next day unfolds with the weirdness escalating, tiny oddities piling up like whispers of a disconcerting secret. The bedroom door, which I could have sworn I securely closed the night before, now stands slightly ajar. I play the game of rationalization, blaming it on the wind, perhaps, or a quirky floorboard with a penchant for rebellious antics. But the subtle disquiet lingers, casting a shadow over the supposedly mundane occurrences. Every corner of the house seems to hold a potential enigma. Objects shift places without explanation, as if the very essence of the space is playing a mischievous game. I find myself retracing my steps, questioning the reliability of my own memory, and seeking logical explanations for each peculiar event. Yet the more I attempt to impose order on the chaos, the more the threads of uncertainty tighten around me. It's in these moments, when the house is cloaked in the silence of the night, that the peculiarities take on a life of their own. Shadows seem to dance in the periphery of my vision, playing tricks on my perception. The creaks and whispers become more pronounced, almost as if the house is attempting to communicate a secret that eludes my understanding. Nights become a delicate balance between curiosity and caution. I find myself listening intently, attuned to every sound that reverberates through the walls. The settling noises, once dismissed as mundane, now echo with an otherworldly resonance. I tread lightly, half expecting the next revelation to be something more than a mere quirk of a new living space. As the days pass, I become a detective in my own home, searching for clues to unravel the mystery that seems to envelop every room. The bedroom door, ever so persistent in its defiance of my intentions, becomes a focal point of my investigation. I check windows for drafts, inspect hinges for irregularities, and yet the door remains an enigmatic portal, offering glimpses into a realm of inexplicable occurrences. The house, initially a canvas for the brushstrokes of a new beginning, transforms into a narrative riddled with uncertainties. Each day unearths new anomalies, a puzzle with pieces that refuse to fit neatly together. And in the quiet moments when the world outside is hushed and the house is left to its own devices, I can't shake the feeling that there's more to this new home than meets the eye. Now, I'm not one to jump to conclusions, but this is straight up horror movie material. I double check all the doors and windows, paranoia seeping into every thought. Maybe it's a prank, friends playing a messed up joke, but that gut feeling says otherwise. Night 2, and things take a turn for the eerie. I'm sure I hear footsteps, deliberate, not the reassuring creaks of an old house. My overactive imagination. I wish. The shadows, once innocent patterns on the wall, now seem to have a life of their own. Dark figures dancing where they shouldn't be. Fear settling in, but pride won't let me admit defeat. I decide to investigate. Armed with a flashlight, I channel my inner detective and head for the attic. Because, every horror movie taught me that's where the creepy stuff goes down. As I push the creaky attic door open, that stale old house smell hits me. It's the scent that whispers secrets from the past, but I'm not feeling sentimental. My flashlight beam pierces through the darkness, revealing dusty forgotten boxes and cobweb masterpieces. And then there it is, a makeshift bed, an eerie imprint on my newly acquired home. Crumpled blankets, signs of recent habitation scattered like breadcrumbs, leading to a disturbing revelation. Someone's been living here, rent-free in my attic, perhaps indulging in my Netflix subscription, and I'm blissfully unaware. My heart, is doing a marathon, pounding against my ribcage like a wild creature desperate for escape. I clutch my phone, hands slightly trembling as I dial the 3 digits that promise a semblance of safety. There's a squatter in my attic, I blurt out, the words rushing out of my mouth like a frantic plea for rescue. I half expect the voice on the other end to chuckle, dismissing my fears as a mere raccoon having a wild party up there. But to my relief and dread, they take it seriously. The arrival of the police transforms my living room into a makeshift command center. Flashlights pierce the veil of darkness as we prepare to embark on the grand attic expedition. There's a collective tension in the air, a shared anticipation of unveiling the unknown. Lo and behold, amidst forgotten trinkets and dusty boxes, we discover a figure curled up in the corner, eyes wide with a mix of shock and guilt. Turns out, he used to be a resident of this house before it hit the market, unable to sever the emotional ties that bound him to these walls. Instead of finding healthier coping mechanisms, he chose the clandestine life of a stealthy squatter. As the police wrestled him out of his hidden sanctuary, I can't help but wonder how long he's been watching me. Learning my routines, blending into the shadows of my everyday life, and enjoying the perks of a hidden lair right above my head. The revelations unfold like a sinister plot, leaving me standing there, staring at the tarnished remnants of what was once my seemingly perfect house. Days drag on, and the aftermath is a symphony of paranoia and caution. The shadows persist, their dance now accompanied by an unspoken threat. I invest in curtains so thick they could rival a medieval fortress, a desperate attempt to keep out both prying eyes and whatever supernatural forces seem to have claimed my new abode. The once inviting openness of my home now feels like a fortress, guarded against both the seen and the unseen. When my girlfriend Kara and I bought our first house together, we were absolutely elated. It was a charming 1920s bungalow in a nice neighborhood, with lovely character like built-in bookshelves, hardwood floors, and a big stone fireplace. There was a cozy front porch perfect for a swing, and even a backyard workshop that I envisioned fixing up as my own personal man cave. After 2 long years of cramped apartment living and scraping together every penny for a down payment, we were thrilled to finally have a place to call our own, a place to build memories together and start the next chapter of our lives. On move-in day, we woke up at the crack of dawn, too excited to sleep in. We gulped down coffee, loaded up the truck, and headed across town with huge smiles plastered on our faces. I'll never forget the exhilaration I felt pulling up to the charming bungalow and seeing the sold sign out front. Unpacking took all day and every muscle ached, but I didn't mind one bit. I proudly hung up Kara's vintage art prints just how she liked them, and assembled our big cozy sectional while she lined the built-ins with books. We didn't have a proper kitchen table yet, so we sat cross-legged on the living room floor eating pizza late into the night, talking and laughing about ideas for decor and future projects. It really was one of the happiest days of my life. About a week after moving in, I went out front to check the mail. I sorted through the usual bills and advertisements when one envelope caught my attention. It was addressed in sloppy, unfamiliar handwriting simply to the new owners with our address. Puzzled, I opened it to find a hostile note scribbled angrily on lined paper. "So you just think you can move into this house like you own the place, huh? I've got news for you. This is not your home. You and your stuck-up girlfriend don't belong here. Get your stuff and get out now before things get ugly. Consider this your first warning." I felt a cold trickle of fear reading the vile words. Someone was threatening us, violating the sanctity and safety of our new home. I looked around anxiously at the surrounding bungalows, wondering which neighbor it could be from. Who would send such a thing? I walked back inside with a sinking feeling, the joyful memories from our first week now tainted. When Kara got home, I showed her the disturbing letter. She became hysterical, convinced we were being targeted by some unhinged psycho. I tried calming her down, suggesting maybe bored teenagers were playing some messed up prank. But inside, my heart was racing as I tucked the hateful note away, wanting desperately to forget it. For the next couple weeks, nothing alarming happened, and I convinced myself it was an isolated incident. Kara remained uneasy, but we carried on decorating, hosting a lively housewarming party and enjoying our newfound freedom away from the constraints of apartment living. I managed to mostly forget about the bizarre note. Then one sunny afternoon, I collected the mail from the box out front. I immediately recognized the familiar sloppy scrawl on a large manila envelope. My hands shook as I tore it open to find a chilling photograph inside. Our house taken at night from across the street. Scrawled menacingly across the image was the message: "Still watching and waiting for you to leave. This house is not yours. Get out now or you'll regret it." Poor Kara was terrified to the point of tears, utterly convinced we were in danger from some unhinged stalker. I called the police right away, and an officer came to file a report on the harassment. He said they would start periodic drive-bys of the house, but admitted limited resources meant full surveillance wasn't possible. Knowing our stalker had already been lurking right outside without getting caught, I felt violated and unprotected. In the following weeks, Kara and I became prisoners in our own happy little home. She could barely eat or sleep, instead staring anxiously out the front window. She refused to stay alone while I was at work. We double-checked the locks religiously at night, but still couldn't rest easy. The dark corners of our cute bungalow now seemed ominous. One morning, Kara went to get the paper and found vulgar slurs spray-painted across our front porch. A few days later, the tires were slashed on both our cars down the block. Each act of vandalism was like the stalker creeping nearer, still invisible but leaving traces of their simmering hatred. The police dusted for fingerprints, questioned neighbors, inspected security footage, but found maddeningly few leads. Soon after, another threatening photo arrived showing our bedroom window at night. The stalker had been right outside without us noticing. Kara became hysterical, saying she refused to just wait helplessly until this psycho made good on their threats. She begged me frantically to put the house on the market so we could get away safely. Though it killed me to give up the first home we'd worked so hard for, I couldn't ignore the wild terror in Kara's eyes. The place we had been so happy and optimistic about just weeks earlier had become a prison we felt trapped in. So I agreed we had to get out. Within a week, we had packed only the essentials and moved into my buddy's place across town. We installed a security system and put the house up for sale immediately at a steep discount. It crushed me to flee under the pressure of this anonymous threat, but Kara's safety came first. Thanks for listening in. If you like these stories and want to hear more, then please subscribe and like and support this new channel. We have more stories for you to listen to.